Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life, and here I have an article for you guys from T-Mobile's newsroom. It's an older article from back in May. It's about the US Cellular acquisition. So in this video, I wanted to talk about what I feel is the most important part of this deal, and what's the most important part of what T-Mobile needs to do moving forward. And I feel it's the coverage. I'm going to get straight to it. I think the coverage piece is the last piece to the puzzle that T-Mobile is missing today. They're plenty fast across the country. We already know they have a lot of mid-band deployed. They had a 2-year head start. In some cases, as it pertains to the 5G, they've had like a 5-6 year head start because they started deploying this in 2017. So we know that that's already happening, right? That's already well developed, well deployed, matured, whatever you want to call it. That piece is already done, right? Now it's about coverage, in my opinion. And I think T-Mobile understands that very well. It's about the coverage piece, closing the coverage. That's, in my opinion, the most important part of this US Cellular deal. Yes, it brings additional spectrum, and that's important as well. Very, very important for the regions that T-Mobile is getting the spectrum in. Likely will allow for more FWA customers, brings more choice, etc. But the coverage is the most important piece to this. And I think that's what T-Mobile is showing us, that they are willing to purchase a regional player, if it makes sense financially, to grow coverage. As I've said in videos long ago when this US Cellular deal was rumored, that yes, T-Mobile can build out this coverage on their own, right? They could build out, overlap the US Cellular coverage footprint and just bleed them dry, right? Because Verizon and AT&T already compete in that territory. T-Mobile is the last one missing. So US Cellular would have to compete against the three big competitors, which would be very hard for them to do. So this would be, like I said, this would be a huge deal from a coverage perspective. And I think everything moving forward, evolving around wireless for T-Mobile, they need to really consider the coverage piece. They've pretty much, if you look at the recent route metrics, yes, they still have work to do. I will acknowledge that. But if you look at the recent route metric first half of 2024 testing, T-Mobile is improving very quickly. So the network is maturing. They're moving more spectrum over to NR. The backhaul is starting to be increased. So within the metro areas, and you can look at their churn too, they're very strong. Even in the suburban areas now, their performance is very strong. I think the priority for T-Mobile, or what they at least should make priority, is the coverage. They need to figure out a way how to expand their coverage the fastest, most efficient way within the next 3 years. US Cellular will help with that. That's 2,100 new sites. So US Cellular will help T-Mobile expand its native coverage in the US Cellular footprint. But there's still other parts of the country that they struggle in, right? Like in the Montanas, the South Dakotas, North Dakotas, right? The Nebraskas. Even though Nebraska they've made huge strides, they still have some areas of question where they need to improve. Maine, right? There's still a big part that they need to improve in, right? The areas of the Washington areas, right? Seattle, Washington, those areas up there, they need to improve in those rural areas. Oregon, that's another big one that they need to improve in. They need to figure out what's the best, most effective way and quickest way within the next 3 years on how to expand the coverage in those areas. If they say, and this is just me throwing out an example, if they say, look, in the state of Oregon, we have favorable municipality permits approvals, right? Meaning it's not going to take too long. We can build out a good amount of towers effectively very quickly, where we can grow our coverage footprint within the next 12 to 18 months. right? And that might be already in progress. So I'm just throwing that out as an example. But then they might say, you know what, in South Dakota, it's been very tough for us to get the network going there. So let's try something else. Let's see if there's a regional we can buy. That's just something that they always look at and make a part of the strategy. Like they seem to have liked the US Cellular deal, right? They probably thought, okay, US Cellular has a good footprint across a certain amount of states, especially in the rural portions where we struggle. So let's purchase them so we can grow that footprint there a lot quicker this way versus having to build all new sites and go through the permitting approval process. So that's at least how I would anticipate T-Mobile should have looked at it. And that's how they probably are looking across the other states where they're struggling. Nebraska, as an example, wasn't too huge of a state to cover. I think about 60,000 total square miles that they needed to cover, maybe a little below that. And they probably said, okay, we have pretty good approval times on the permits. It's not taking too long. So let's build out in the state. Let's do a lot of co-locating and we can expand coverage that way. And per the coverage map, and I know, take that with a grain of salt, but per their coverage map, which is fairly accurate, they cover that state now natively, I would say a good portion of it. I would say if the coverage map is as accurate as some say, and it's believable, they cover like 75% of that state now natively with the 5G network. So that used to be like 80 to 90% roaming before they got to work on that state. And now it's like 70 to 75% native coverage with a lot of mid-band N41 as well deployed. So that's just what I wanted to talk about in this video. I think this US Cellular deal, yes, it comes with spectrum. It comes with some additional synergies as well, which I think they're going to use 100% of the synergies and reinvest it right back into this deal so they can get moving as quickly as possible to convert those sites and upgrade and add the T-Mobile asset onto the US Cellular sites. But I feel this deal was mainly meant for the coverage. T-Mobile knows they have to close the coverage gap to its competitors to be able to fully 100% once and for all compete. And that perception is closing bit by bit. They speak with the CIOs on the business side. They know that they can get these bigger companies, these bigger partnerships, but they have to close that coverage gap very quickly, right? They can't let it linger on for another 10 years. They have to natively grow that footprint much larger, which in return is going to help the balance sheet, believe it or not, right? That allows them to lessen the roaming coverage, which that means, they don't have to pay the competitor, whoever they're using for the roaming. So that saves them money. And then as well, the sites that they're putting up in those areas, depending, right, they can monetize for further capital with FWA. So it's kind of a win-win to deploy the coverage native. But like I said, they're going to have to really expand coverage. They can't just go along some of the more busier interstates and highways. No, they need to cover the back roads as well. They need to get wherever the people are traveling, and they call it customer-focused driven coverage. So wherever the customer's traveling, they need to cover it. If Verizon and AT&T are there, T-Mobile needs to be there too. Let's just make it that simple. That's just how it has to be, especially in a competitive environment as what we're witnessing today. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think T-Mobile is striking these deals for the coverage portion of the company now. And let me know if you think that's the final piece to the puzzle. Like I said, in the top 100 markets, they have such a massive share in most of these areas that they've built out an extensive network. Densification, upgrade to N41, all of that has been happening and is still happening. They're doing the pico cells, they're doing the small cells, they're doing the indoor DAS systems. It's just going to take a little bit more time to see it at a bigger scale. But now I go into my local mall, which is the most busiest mall in the city, and there's a pico cell DAS system inside. 700 megabits all day long on N41. So that wasn't the case like 2 years ago, right? Hospitals, they're getting DAS systems inside of hospitals. Inside of other strip malls and outdoor malls, they're putting DAS systems or they're putting small cells close by if the macro can't handle it. hotels, right? They're doing the DAS systems too. So just give them a little bit more time as they mature as a company in the metros. But the coverage piece, that's where they still lag behind, and they're trying to fix it. They're trying to throw capital at it, right? With this US Cellular deal, it's going to cost them, I think it's 2.4 billion what they have to pay, and then they take on $2 billion worth of debt. So about 4.4 billion is what they're going to pay in total to get this US Cellular deal. And I think 90% of that is coverage. It's coverage related. It allows T-Mobile to grow the footprint. It allows them to go after more FWA, and then it strengthens their spectrum portfolio, which in return would allow them to possibly expand even further in those parts where even US Cellular didn't have coverage. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. See y'all in the next one. Peace.